The story of Star Wars Battlefront 2 2017 is a story of redemption. A rocky launch. A launch plagued with controversy. A launch of a game that some considered to be a shell of what could have been, lacking content, or rather lacking the content they wanted.
LOL, why didn't they just remake the old Battlefronts with better graphics?
One of my favorite Star Wars games of all time is Shadows of the Empire. But if I wipe away the thick coat of nostalgia paste from my eyes, I fully recognize that Jedi Fallen Order is a better game in pretty much every respect. Story, gameplay, combat, characters, graphics.
Not everything's about graphics.
Yeah, no shit. As much as I love Shadows of the Empire, do I want it remade? No. Make a new seedy Star Wars adventure game. I loved Galactic Battlegrounds back in the day. Do I want that remade? No. Make a new Star Wars RTS. If the new Battlefront games were not called Battlefront, and they were called something else, would the original games get brought up nearly as much as they do as a measurement of success or comparison? I doubt it. But they are called Star Wars Battlefront, and maybe that is the biggest issue. But then again, just remake KOTOR. Just remake Empire at War.
Just remake the game that I played as a kid because it was the best game ever.
We all see that shit all the time. A change.org petition to remaster a game that came out 15 years ago. Have you ever tried to show a kid, like a young kid, like your niece or your nephew or your cousins, a game that you used to play when you were a kid? They'll appease you for a few minutes. Eventually, they just lose complete interest. You used to play this, you old f***er? You're sitting there telling them how great it was, how it was so incredible back in the day. I used to play this all the time when I was your age. Ha 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 ha. And then they just go back to Fortnite because you realize all the games that you played as a kid, none of the new kids want to play them because they got their own fun new games. Sure, there are some things that I think modern Battlefront 2 is lacking compared to its predecessors, primarily Battlefront 2 2005. I've always kind of described Battlefront 2 2005 as messy chaos, but to me, modern Battlefront 2 in its current updated state surpasses most features in either of the original Battlefront games. It's come a long way, eras, modes, heroes. The game has survived and thrived for longer than I expected. I kind of expected this thing to be dead by now. And since release, they've done a hell of a job putting out new content and keeping the player base engaged. It's polished, it's fun, there's constantly new stuff coming out. I mean, yeah, I can understand why people would complain at the beginning, and sure, there's an argument against a lot of this live service stuff in all video games. LOL, you know, a game never gets released 100% completed on launch day. And I get it, there's legitimate complaints there. Absolutely, hell yeah, I would not discount that whatsoever. But judging it as it is right now, judging the game as it is right now, March of 2020, it's one of the most immersive and competitive Star Wars shooters, if not the most immersive and competitive Star Wars shooters we've seen. Now, for me, the biggest missing feature that is lacking when it comes to modern Battlefront 2, and this might differ from a lot of other people because people might be thinking of modes or individual things that were in the game, I don't know, but to me, the biggest missing feature is the ability to create, the ability to customize, the ability to host a server, the ability to make your own maps. Battlefront 2 2005 still has an active modding community. It still has map makers making maps. And those maps, that new innovation, that active player base, who continues the 15-year legacy of that game, is directly responsible for that game's continued activeness. And sure, it's extremely small, that activeness is tiny relative to all the new games out there, but it's still active nonetheless. And if there was a little bit of an official support capacity there, I think it would be even way bigger. Giving the community the ability to create and take control of the game that you made ensures a certain level of survival to that game, and also ensures a certain level of appreciation from the player base and trust from the player base. You guys know I used to make Counter-Strike maps non-stop back in the day. I used to host my own servers. It's some of the fondest memories I have playing video games, and I would love nothing more than to make my own maps in Battlefront 2 2017. There will always be features in previous installments of games, no matter what franchise it is, that people will want to see implemented in all future games of that franchise. I mean, look at the Madden franchise. The second they change anything in that game, the entire world of Madden starts throwing their arms up in a blind rage that they changed a thing. Why isn't this like last year's system? Last year's system was a good system. Why change it when you had a good system? The original Battlefront games were mind-blowing. I remember when Battlefield 1942 came out in 2002. I could not get enough of that game. It was huge, it was immersive, and I think every Star Wars fan that played Battlefield 1942 sat back and said, whoa, wouldn't it be awesome if they made a Star Wars game like this? And then boom, 2 years later in 2004, we got one. And a year after that, we got another one. The first of its kind for the franchise. Giant, messy chaos. We all have games that we loved back in the day, and they hold a special place in our hearts. And yeah, many times those games have features that will never be beat in your mind. I have games like that too, and for me, it's games like Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies. Those two games set the bar for what MMOs could and should be in my brain. I fully understand wanting more of the same. I get it, trust me, I completely get it. But for me, I can still go back and play the games that I loved. And if everything was a carbon copy of what came before, I would get bored fast. That's why I haven't played Call of Duty multiplayer since 2010. So, are the original Battlefront games better than Battlefront 2 2017? That requires a completely subjective answer. And to think otherwise, because you have a list of things that you liked more, is kinda goofy.